Welcome back, everybody. My name is Tucker, and in today's video, we're once again talking about some NBA trade rumors. Teams can't technically make moves yet, but day after day, we're getting more and more information about players that could possibly be on the move, and this time it is about Jrue Holiday of the New Orleans Pelicans, a player that continually, in my opinion, gets put into a lot of trades, and rightfully so. But to this point, the Pelicans had not shown an interest or a desire in actually moving Jrue Holiday until a report that came out earlier today. I originally had a different plan for today's video, at least the second video of today, but I switched it up to talk about these rumors, and that's what we're going to be talking about in today's video. But really quickly, before we get started, if you enjoy content like this, then consider subscribing. I upload twice a day, every single day, all throughout the NBA offseason. It is a great place for consistent NBA content. So if that's your thing, then you should consider subscribing. We're on the push towards 100,000 subscribers. We might even get there by the end of the year, which would be pretty cool. You can also leave a like rating on the video. It helps me out a ton. It lets me know that you're enjoying the content, and it helps YouTube get the video out to more people as well. And you can hang out with me over on Twitch at twitch.tv/spolo_TD. It's an awesome place to just kind of vibe and hang out, talk about basketball, talk about whatever. It's been really fun to continue to grow that platform, so you should come check it out. And you can check out the Discord server as well and hang out with people outside of these videos that also watch the same videos that you do. The link to that is down in the description below. With those things said, let's go ahead and start talking about Jrue Holiday going to another team outside of the New Orleans Pelicans. So specifically, this report yesterday basically said that the Pelicans are actively listening to new trade offers as it relates to Jrue Holiday and are willing to deal him. Specifically, this report mentioned contenders having some offers on the table whenever the trade restriction is lifted to potentially get Jrue Holiday. Now, we don't really know still when exactly teams are going to be able to make trades, because since the league was suspended, they have not been able to make trades, and that restriction has not been lifted. Presumably that will happen within the next week and a half or so, as the NBA draft is coming up very, very quickly, and you have to be able to make trades on draft night. So within a very short time span here, we could see Jrue Holiday on a different team. Now, the report doesn't specifically mention any teams, but we can obviously speculate here. And for me, you can look at teams at the top of this draft, teams like potentially Minnesota, teams like Golden State, even a team like Chicago that thinks maybe they can push for the playoffs next year with Jrue Holiday on their roster. Those are teams that I would keep in mind. When we're talking about Minnesota, maybe they look at Jrue Holiday as an ideal fit there alongside D'Angelo Russell and Karl-Anthony Towns. And yeah, the number one pick is a pretty high price to pay, but another thing to keep in mind here is you're not getting Jrue Holiday for free. The Pelicans really like him as a player. They're not just going to give him away. They see the value that Jrue Holiday provides to these teams. And yeah, it's not just going to be a straight up Jrue Holiday for the first pick in the draft. There would be other things involved there. But I wouldn't be surprised if the first pick from Minnesota or the second pick from Golden State is involved in a possible Jrue Holiday trade. As it relates to the Warriors, the positional fit there, you could maybe call into question a little bit, because Holiday is technically a combo guard, which would shift Klay Thompson to the 3 spot in that starting lineup. And that still leaves them with this weird, they've got basically 5 starters, but none of them can play the 5 when you're talking about Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, presumably Andrew Wiggins, especially from a salary standpoint as a starter. Then you add Jrue Holiday and then Draymond Green. Obviously, Draymond can play the 5, but he wouldn't do that full time for an entire season. So that might not be the best move for Golden State. The Minnesota fit is really, really interesting to me, as is a team that we talk about all the time as it relates to trade rumors this offseason, the Brooklyn Nets. Players like Bradley Beal have been more commonly associated with the Nets because people love this 3-star dynamic that continues to get thrown around. But players like Victor Oladipo and Jrue Holiday are players that I have mentioned in the past as guys that I would rather have on the roster in Brooklyn, because A, they'd be cheaper in terms of the assets you'd be trading away, and B, their two-way play, in my opinion, is a better fit on a roster with Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant already there, rather than bringing in another ball-dominant scorer like Bradley Beal. Specifically for Jrue Holiday, I think the Nets have some assets that the Pelicans would be interested in. Karis LeVert fits their timeline relatively well, is signed for the next couple of years as well, so there wouldn't be too many issues in the salary matching purposes there, and you can put some picks in there as well, and I think that would be a package that the Pelicans would potentially be interested in. Another team to take a look at here, of course, is the Dallas Mavericks, another team that has a really good perimeter player in Luka Doncic. They've got their big man as well as Kristaps Porzingis, and they need to bring in a player, again, like Victor Oladipo or Jrue Holiday, that can provide them that two-way play, that can be a really good offensive player while also being really good defensively. That's part of the value that Jrue Holiday brings to the table. And when you look at this Mavs roster, it would be a pretty ideal fit. The thing that I call into question for Dallas is do they have the assets to make this work? Because outside of a 3-team deal, it seems like that wouldn't be the case. Keep in mind, this is a team that owes future draft picks to New York, so their ability to trade more future draft picks is relatively limited. They obviously still could do it if they chose this as their possible all-in option, going to get Jrue Holiday. But in terms of players and assets on the roster outside of draft picks, which again is limited, I don't know if the Mavericks have quite enough to make this happen outside of a possible 3-team situation. As we continue to go down the list, though, of possible suitors, one that I think is probably most interesting at this point is the Milwaukee Bucks. Because in my mind, when you're thinking about, possibly switching out Eric Bledsoe as an upgrade at that point guard spot, and you're switching him out for Jrue Holiday, that makes that team that much more interesting. Now, I don't know if the Pelicans would be even remotely interested in Bledsoe plus, DiVincenzo and some other assets, and there's probably going to be better trade options on the table. But specifically from a team fit standpoint, Holiday, Middleton, Giannis, and shooters sounds like a really, really good fit there in Milwaukee. That would certainly help them possibly retain Giannis Antetokounmpo in 2021 free agency, assuming that he does not sign that Supermax extension this offseason. So unless I'm completely blanking on a team, those are the 5 that I would keep in mind at the moment as teams that could be at the forefront of this possible Jrue Holiday trade. We're talking about Minnesota, we're talking about Golden State, we're talking about Brooklyn, we're talking about Milwaukee, and Dallas. The other thing to keep in mind here, though, and what could possibly push down the trade value of Jrue Holiday here a little bit, is that he is a 2021 free agent. And that complicates things a little bit for teams that might not have the ability to retain him in free agency. And the team that comes to mind there, of course, is Minnesota. We've talked about this in the past with them potentially bringing in Victor Oladipo or Jrue Holiday or any player that is a 2021 free agent. With Minnesota specifically, there's no guarantee that things are going to go well there this upcoming season, that they're going to win very many games, even with the additions to the roster, just because the Western Conference is so tough and they haven't had a very good couple of seasons there. And if you're nervous about that, that could certainly drive down the price in terms of what Minnesota would be willing to give up. And giving up the number 1 pick in the draft, plus however else it gets worked out in exchange for a unrestricted 2021 free agent, is a scary, scary prospect if you're Minnesota. So there's pros and cons here for every team. There's realistic aspects of this for each team and unrealistic aspects for each team. But I think at the end of the day, this is certainly an exciting thing if you're an NBA fan, because the Pelicans have been notoriously stubborn as it relates to trading away Jrue Holiday. And I don't even mean that in a negative way. I just mean that in a sense of like, they know what they have here. They know that Jrue Holiday is someone that can fit on a lot of different rosters. He's a player that contenders are certainly going to be very, very interested in as a possible final piece. And even though, he's a 2021 free agent, he's still relatively young, and when healthy is one of the better two-way and combo guards in the entire league. And again, the ease in which you're able to fit Jrue Holiday into your team is something that the Pelicans are not undervaluing, in any way. So this is going to be a player to keep in mind, especially with some of those teams either that are contending or that happen to have picks towards the top of this draft. There's a couple of sleeper teams in there, like potentially Chicago, that has talent on the roster that now, with a new head coach in Billy Donovan, could really make some noise in the Western Conference this upcoming season. So I will certainly continue to keep an eye on what happens with Jrue Holiday. It seems like right now it's relatively likely that he will get moved. The Pelicans are kind of accepting at this point that as good as a player as Holiday is, and as much as they like him, their timeline of being a good team is going to stretch further past this upcoming season. So getting value out of Jrue Holiday now is probably the right option for them, playing the longer game with some of these young players that they have on this roster, and are going to continue to build into this roster over the next couple of seasons with some of their extra draft picks. That is probably the correct move. If I was in charge there in New Orleans, I would certainly be looking for trade options involving Jrue Holiday, and I think they should be able to get some pretty good assets in return. That situation with Brooklyn intrigues me a lot if I was in charge in New Orleans, because I really do like Caris LeVert, and if you can get Caris LeVert plus some other things in exchange for Jrue Holiday, that is certainly a good option to at least explore, in my opinion, when you're then talking about a core group of players. There's other players on the fringes of this, plus draft picks, but you're looking at Lonzo Ball, Caris LeVert, Brandon Ingram, Zion Williamson, and Jackson Hayes just as kind of your initial group. That's not a bad thing to have at all there in New Orleans. And there you have it. That is going to be the end of today's video, and I thank you all very much for watching. Once again, my name is Starker. If you guys missed any of my previous videos, including any of the videos that I've been posting over the last week and a half to 2 weeks, where it has been twice a day, every single day, then be sure to check out the boxes on screen. Thanks again, and I'll see you all next time.